Part 1. Tasmanian Devil, 1909 to 1927. The Tasmanian Devil, Sarcophilus ursinus, is a carnivorous marsupial known for its extreme ferocity. My parents were born in Australia. My father, when he was about 24, was beginning his life work as a marine biologist. He hung around the house of a family named Young, where there were 3 beautiful women, Alice, Betty, and Morel. Father was interested in Betty, but my mother, Morel, nabbed him. He must have been a pushover for Mother. She was 21 and full of animal spirits. He was just a tall hunk of scholarship. My father and mother, after marriage, were on board a ship called the Aurora, making a very early scientific expedition to the South Pole. My father was shipped as a biologist. The boat was in Australia-Tasmania waters when Mother was found to be pregnant. She was put ashore at Hobart, Tasmania, and my father went on to the expedition. They strung a bunch of names on me. Errol Leslie Thompson Flynn. I dropped the name Leslie because I had an uncle of that name and we hated each other's guts. Father settled in Tasmania as a biology lecturer at the Hobart University, a very young man soon to hold a full professorship. Mother began to like the place and they decided to stay there. My earliest years were in this strange, cold little land to the south of Australia. Hobart is a town that nestles at the foot of Mount Wellington. My principal recollection of it is as apples. My principal recollection of it is of its apples, its jams, its rosy-cheeked girls. I am happy to note that even at that early age, I was pretty observant. We lived in a little 2-story brick house, and there was a courtyard behind us where I spent much of my time. The region was agricultural. A beach, Sandy Bay, was not far away, and I was often there, swimming at the age of 3. The beach was of hard brown sand, the water freezing cold. Mother was a good swimmer, and she took me there often. I have never been out of ocean water for very long ever since. From about 4 or 5, I began one long, unending scrap with my mother. As she tells it today, she is living with my father in England. I was a devil in a boy's clothing. I can only sympathize with her. I can really understand she had a good case in finding me unmanageable. I wish I could say that time had changed the situation between us. It has not. We have fallen out all our lives. I have a mind full of memories of these childhood hassles. Mother was quick to anger, and she didn't believe in sparing the rod. She would grab the hairs at the back of my head, pull them very hard, and, held in that position, I'd get a whacking. I don't say she didn't love me. She may have, in her way. I revolted from time to time, bellowing, "Every time you come near me, you only want to wash me." That's the sign of a protective mother, I suppose. My resistance to authority led naturally to incessant scoldings and thrashings. I played regularly, or irregularly, with a little girl next door named Nerita. One day we exhausted the interest in bushrangers, which is the Australian equivalent of cowboys and Indians. She proposed that we play house, husband and wife. She prepared mud pies. I pretended to eat them. The inevitable happened. We went under the porch of Nerita's house and played more seriously at husband and wife. "I'll show you mine and you show me yours," I said. She was game. Nerita's mother nabbed us red-fingered, and she promptly told my mother. I got a hell of a shellacking. I wondered why I should get wailed on, while Nerita, who was older, got off with a "you mustn't do that, darling." My mother not only lambasted me, but said, "Now you shall tell your father yourself." I dreaded having to do this. It was an afternoon terrible with anticipation till my father came home. Then, whether from fear or stubbornness, I couldn't open my mouth. Mother yelled, "Go on, tell him what you did, you dirty little brute. Go on, don't stand there. Tell your father what you were doing." My father, who was sympathetic, said, "Now, Morel, he will tell me in his own time." "He will not. He will tell you now." She flew at me again. I screamed. He stepped in. He was never any match for her, either in words or action, and Mother followed through with a torrent of invective. This is no place for me, I decided. I'd leave home, get a job. The next morning, I went out of doors, ostensibly to play. I walked off, a long walk, into the farming country. Jobs weren't plentiful. There was a great deal of unemployment in the 7-year-old ranks. I applied at a few farms, but was everywhere told to go home. At night I couldn't go home, didn't even know the way, so I climbed a tree. I settled into the crotch of a tree. At least I was out of reach of any predatory animals, where I spent a most uncomfortable night. 24 hours passed. I was ravenous. What to eat? I saw some cows. They were being suckled by the calves. I thought, that's for me for breakfast. One of the cows was laying down, and I thought, that one looks easy. What I didn't know was that this cow had no calves, so that when I went to work for breakfast on her udder, all I got was a big kick in the crotch. Hunger drove me into a farmhouse, and I was given food. I had 2 more days and another night on the highway. On the 3rd morning, I hit a farm where the family showed concern. I told them I was out for a job. I even told them who I was and that I had run away. The man of the house left the table while I was eating and went to fetch my father. After a time, I saw my father approaching, looking tall, downcast, worried. He thanked the woman who took care of me. All he said was, "Come along, son." We returned in silence. I had no idea what was going to happen. To my astonishment, when I arrived, I saw Mother in bed, as if she had been prostrated. She let out a piercing cry. "Oh, thank God! Thank God you're back! You nearly killed me with worry." I felt my father's umbrella poking in the middle of my back. "Go on over," he whispered. "Go on over there." It was a long walk to her bed. She seized me with her arms, showered me with kisses. To my complete astonishment, she had never done that before. Tears streamed down her face. It was bewildering. It ran through my head. Why is she like this to me now, when she was like that to me before? Was Mother worried about me only because of what effect my absence or death would have on her marriage, her husband? I don't know, but it was a greater show of affection than I generally received. Recently, my mother wrote a letter descriptive of that incident, remarking, "He ran away from home when he was about 7, and we suffered agonies of anxiety for 3 days and nights. He was found miles away, where he went and offered himself for work at a dairy farm. He asked only 5 shillings a week as wages, saying that would do him, as he never intended to marry. That tells it. I never have married. I have been tied up with women in one legal situation after another called marriage, but they somehow break up. Once, when I skipped school, a regular practice, I told Father about it. He thought my confession was very honest. "Now go home and tell your mother, and I know she will understand," he said. I got a wailing. At Harvard University, there is a distinguished professor, head of the School of Economics. His name is John Glover, my first cousin. He is the son of my mother's sister Betty, who lost out to Dad in the marriage stakes. John and I lived in the same house at Kirribilli Point, Sydney, for some time, and we didn't get along very well. He was studious, smart, well-behaved. He knew more about everything than I did. That must have made me jealous, but I was bigger. I resorted to my usual bullying practice of blackmail. I used to try to force him to lie to get me out of hot spots, but he wasn't good at it. An incident developed having to do with one of my truancies from school. Someone shook the truth out of him. Again, I had to undergo the inevitable hair pulling and slapping. This time, Mother locked me in a back room for 2 days. I learned then what a prison cell was like. I have hated ever since the prospect of being cooped up. It was a storeroom with a board floor, one window, and nothing but a blanket or two and a suitcase sharing space with me. Beneath the wooden floor, I heard my friends, the guinea pigs, moving about. That was some slight comfort. Fortunately, my aging maternal grandmother, Edith, who was about 5 feet tall, pretty much ruled the house. She was the only one who could give orders to my mother. She stood up on a couple of packing cases to hand in to me through the window some chunks of bread covered with dripping sugar. A gruesome mess, but I was glad to get it. Since then, my cousin John and I have become good friends, but I remember how he was associated once or twice with the early bitterness between my mother and me. Mother played the piano. She sang, she danced, she talked 3 languages, German, French, and English. The photographs of her when she was young show a beautiful woman. She was an athlete, a good swimmer. There was much about her that I learned only in my adult years. Apparently, she had theatrical ambitions which she concealed from my scholarly father. Once a motion picture group came through Hobart and Mother was paid to do a swimming bit. The professor didn't know. He was too involved with his laboratory work to follow all her moves or keep pace with her passionate nature. Yet I have no awareness of having received from her any theatrical motivation. This came to me later on, in New Guinea, by misadventure. We did have an inside track to the local theatricals. My uncle, Oscar O'Thames, was one of the heads of the J.C. Williamson Theatrical Company. Every now and then I got from him a free pass to the theater to see some traveling show. It was always a gallery seat. One day I looked downward to the stage, where there pirouetted a celebrated figure, Pavlova. Her dancing enchanted me. She seemed to me a vision from another world, and I fell desperately in love with her. I think it was from seeing the artistry of this dancer that I first felt an affinity for the world of art. Ever since then, dancers do much to me. The only indication in me for acting was an incident that occurred one day when I was abroad with Mother in the streets of Hobart. One of her male friends came along and commented on how jolly I looked. Mother urged me to acknowledge by bowing. I didn't budge, just kept quiet. Afterwards, when she asked me why I was so rude, I said, "Mama, I was playing trains, being a train, and trains don't speak." That was my first acting bit, a character role. Another item of Flynnania, at that age, another item of Flynniana, as had it that at the age of 2 I jangled her nerves one day with a big word. Evident you are always at the powder puff. Mother must have remembered it, for it was told to me recently. For the rest, I recall primarily this continual sore behind of mine. My young, beautiful, impatient mother, with the itch to live perhaps too much like my own, was a tempest about my ears, as I about hers. Our war deepened so that a time came when it was a matter of indifference to me whether I saw her or not. These brawls with her, almost daily occurrences, did something to me. Mostly, I wanted to get away from her, get away from home.